So there's this thing that some people do at universities, and it's called film studies. And film studies sounds kind of boring, doesn't it? After all, isn't studying just a bunch of hard work? Well, certainly it is, but gaining knowledge about anything in the world requires time, it requires effort, and usually it involves some kind of exchange of currency. But why on earth would anybody want to know anything about film or cinema or the movies or whatever you want to call this experience of watching images play out across a screen? Why would anybody want to do this? Well, if you have a few seconds, I'd like to tell you exactly why this thing called film studies is never boring, and it's never hard work, and it's one of the most amazing investments in your time and energy and money that you will ever make. In fact, it may be the most energizing activity that you ever engage in. All you need to do is learn how to see the movies. And I mean really see them. After you've learned how to see movies, which means how to think about them as well, you're going to understand that the way that you can use movies to learn creates a wonderful energy, an energy that will guide you through other things you need to study. It'll guide you through some of the most insanely difficult scholarly articles that you ever encounter. And plus, when you learn how to see movies for what they really are, magical things begin to happen in your life. And I'm not talking about obvious stuff like understanding art better or understanding culture or economics or politics and human psychology. All of that's going to happen. But I'm also talking about picking up good research and communication skills, good thinking skills, the kind of things that you get when you write about essays about the movies. And you get this in this course because you're invited to participate and write and actually have people reading your stuff and giving you feedback. And this is an amazing, amazing benefit of engaging in this 21st century course in film studies. It also gives you time and project management abilities because you're going to go through this course in a very detailed way. You're going to complete these assignments, and you just imagine getting better at organizing yourself, working to deadlines, just by watching movies and completing a few assignments about them. This is an opportunity that you have to really sharpen up your skills in this area. You might also wind up with opportunities to write journalism about the movies simply by learning how to think about them in this way. You know, people talk about critics, and sometimes critics get a bad name and so forth, but actually criticism is a skill, and you could find yourself in a career as a critic or even just a content manager or perhaps an editor, and you might end up working in the film industry itself because you have this advanced knowledge. You could also become a screenwriter. There are skills that I've covered in my books, like horror genre secrets for screenwriters and disaster genre secrets for screenwriters. These can lead to you becoming an editor, maybe directing your own pictures, writing your own pictures, any number of production roles, all of which will make you really proud when you see your name up in the credits. I know I've been proud when I saw myself up on the big screen, not my image, but my name, and it's really, really cool. Now, all of that is fine and dandy, and you can probably picture yourself benefiting from some of that, can't you? Well, as wonderful as those outcomes will be, what I'm really hoping is for you to learn to think at a higher level. And so I'm talking about developing your creative and analytical abilities that are sorely lacking in the world, and more and more. In fact, they seem to be disappearing at a pace faster than most films run through the projector. But since nearly everyone watches movies, it doesn't have to be that way. Anyone can learn to think historically, theoretically, and analytically about movies. The question is, why do this? Why would you want to think about movies in these ways? Well, here's the thing. Life is filled with vital problems. For thousands of years, people have been chewing on these problems and trying to find solutions, or at least find ways to dumb down the pain. And stories have been one of the highest forms of solving humanity's problems, or at least helping us think them through. And this form of communication, narrative, creates all kinds of images in the mind and makes discussions possible that wouldn't be possible otherwise. And the movies have taken stories and made them an even higher form of art by bringing together nearly every art you can think of into one package. So you get painting, acting, music, editing, architecture, lighting, cooking. The list goes on and on. They're all represented at some level in film. And movies are kind of like this cathedral that requires a helping hand from each and every artisan that you can possibly think of. And this means that each movie is a compression of the unconscious minds of every person involved in making it. And if we know how to interpret the movies, we know how to interpret those minds. And those minds have clues about how to survive in the world. And in some cases, they have clues about how not to survive in the world so well. But if you'd like to think and be a more open-minded person, simply by tapping into these forms of thought and recognizing the complex problems and solutions that humans create through their stories, you're in the right place. And as a result of developing this skill, you're going to become more self-disciplined, self-monitoring, self-correcting, and you're going to create new standards of excellence for yourself and how you communicate. And because you're practicing communication by thinking about the movies and writing in the ways that you have an opportunity to do so in this course, you're going to become a much more effective communicator. And it's all by thinking at a higher level about stories. Now, why do this in the context of genre? Well, genre is interesting because it not only gives us multiple frameworks for thinking about stories, but genre also gives us ways to think about thinking itself. So whenever we label movies with genres like action or horror, we can step back and ask, why were these choices made? These create interesting discussions that often have surprising conclusions. And the question of genre is also the question of history, which opens up themes of lineage, people, and the places from which those people originate. And ultimately, genre is a tool. It's a lens through which we observe the movies and describe them clearly and precisely from very interesting angles. And it's the same tool that we can use to step back from this field of all the images and all the stories that we see and think about them in completely new ways altogether. So genre frameworks, how to understand story, structure, and symbolism in any movie, invites you to develop in all these ways through a number of creative exercises, short written assignments that will strengthen your thinking, your observation skills, and you may even become a better storyteller yourself if you like to write stories. In other words, Genre Frameworks is an interactive course. If you're interested in growing as you learn about the movies, Genre Frameworks is your chance to develop as a thinker and take action. Now that doesn't sound boring at all, does it? Give me a couple hours of your life as you go through this course, watch some movies, and complete a few simple exercises. They're all fun, and you'll be astonished by how rapidly your thinking abilities grow, along with the other skills needed to be a contributing member of society who has not only the time to watch more movies, but is using the time that you spend consuming visual media in order to better yourself. And above all, you'll enjoy the movies more. So just as a pilot takes more pleasure in the flight than anyone else on board, you're going to bask in the joy and happiness more than anyone else in the theater. And you'll be the ultimate movie critic and the person to know, because your love for the movies and your passion and knowledge will come shining through in everything you say and do. But there's really no time to delay. The previews are coming to an end and the show's about to begin, so let's dive into the introduction of this course and get started.